Hello, everybody. Welcome to a conversation with 1,000 women strong. We are super excited to end Women's History Month, but also kick off a series of conversation with Black women, especially. No apologies for that, on issues that 1,000 women strong will take up for this campaign. Super excited tonight to introduce our 4 issue campaigns, but more excited to be gathered with strong Black women who we consider allies and friends from around the country. So I'm going to do a quick intro to our executive director and founder, Shakia Cherry Donaldson, who is not on screen, but we always want to save space for, who started 1,000 Women Strong over 2 years ago with one mission in mind, and that was to gather Black women from around the country to reclaim their political power and mobilize them to action. She's done just that, from flipping races in Southwest Georgia to going as far as Texas, all the way up to Virginia, doing the work that needed to be done, helping to make sure Black voices were heard around the world, especially those of Black women. So tonight, super excited to be joined by some of our friends. So without further ado, we're gonna introduce our panel, super strong panel tonight of friends and allies who will help us kind of carry the conversation forward, intro you to the work that's ahead for this campaign season, and also just share some girlfriend talk, some chatter about what's important to them, what's important to our community. So first and foremost, we'll start with Bree Maxwell.
So good evening, everyone. I hope you guys can hear me well.
We
I just want to also let you know I'm here in my personal capacity. I'm not here on behalf of my employment, so I have to let you know that ahead of time. But I'm here in my personal capacity as Bree Maxwell, as a DNC committee woman from the state of South Carolina. And I look forward to speaking with you all tonight and telling you about the issues that Black women face and the ways that we can make sure that Black women are at the helm of politics and basically the world going forward. So I look forward to speaking with you all. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Bree. And next, we introduce one of my favorite powerhouses. I think she was my boss this last presidential election campaign, Bianca Keaton.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Reggie, for having me here. And I'm really excited to be here and to share more about what it is that Black women need to see in policy. I have a very extensive background in politics and campaigns. I am 15 years in, having worked on Capitol Hill and served on a number of campaigns that span local and federal politics. And am the recent past chairwoman for my county party, which in the 2020 cycle flipped 15 seats. So I'm really proud of that. We elected a lot of Black women to office, and there are so many things that our community needs, and those needs are best represented when we're at the table.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We will have one other powerful voice joining us who's having just a little bit of technical difficulties. So in her absence, I'm going to intro Nervahna, who is a past commissioner out of North Carolina, who currently holds the position of Deputy State Director for America Votes for North Carolina. So Nervahna will join us in a moment. We can catch up with her just as girlfriends do when we're sitting around chatting, but we want to go right into conversations that impact Black women. So Bree, I'm gonna start with you. So working with the DNC as a committee woman, which is huge, Bree introed herself as a committee woman out of South Carolina. Bree represents us. I may be a little bit biased to Bree being from South Carolina. So when we talk about the most influential voting bloc, some would say, I would definitely agree that it's the Black woman. What does that have to look like in 2024?
So it is the Black woman. I mean, it's like, there's no sugarcoating it. There's no saying where such and such is the second voting bloc, but we're talking about the number one voting bloc. And it is the Black woman. We have been voting. We have been encouraging people to vote. We have had voter registration drives. We do it all, and we come out and we make sure we vote. Now, what does that look like for 2024? It looks like making sure that there are more Black women in leadership in the political sector. One thing that South Carolina did a great job of making sure that most of the people who were over the presidential campaigns were Black women. But we have to make sure that not only we have Black women as state directors and campaign managers, but we also need to make sure that they are finance directors, that they are also political directors, that they are also writing policy. We also got to make sure that we're hiring Black women consultants. And I think that's one thing that gets lost in the sauce. We always talk about having these consultants and how we want to have a blackity black team, but yet our consultants look like this, pale, male, and stale. And there are plenty of smart, intelligent Black women who can be out here doing the work. So what it looks like for 2024 is not only making sure that Black women are empowered to be in leadership, but making sure that they're running state parties. We're having a state party election right now where we have two Black women running actually, and we have 2 Black women and 1 Black man running. So that's one thing we need to make sure that we are propping not necessarily propping them up, but preparing them to get to the forefront of leadership. And when they do run, we need to make sure that we're supporting them. On top of that, we need to make sure that there are Black women, that policy is being written for Black women. We also know that there are many health issues that Black women face that a lot of other people are not dealing with. And we also know that there is medical discrimination. So we have to make sure that Black women are taken care of, not just when it comes to running for office and getting jobs, but also when it comes to the medical sector. We also need to make sure that we're teaching Black women to rest, because we have been carrying the load for so long. And one thing I told myself after 2020, I'm gonna rest, and I'm not about that labor life anymore. Bryanta can tell you, I've had many opportunities to do many great things, but if it didn't align with my goals to make sure I can go to bed by 9 o'clock, then I'm not going to do it. And I want to take a nap at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So we have to make sure that we're also practicing self-care, and that the people around us to make sure that we are practicing self-care as well. But I want to also go back to touching on, you said about 2024, we just need to make sure that Black women are able to live the life that they want to live, that their voices are heard. It's not enough to just have a seat at the table. You need to make sure that you're having a voice at the table, and going further beyond having a voice at the table is making sure that your voice is being heard, and what you want to see implemented and happen in this world is also happening, and you are getting the credit for it. I know there's a saying that says a lot of work can get done as long as we don't care who gets the credit. No, you deserve the credit for the work or for your ideas. Long are the days of just doing stuff and letting somebody else take the credit. That's one thing that Black women faced during the civil rights movement. The men were on the front line, but the women were making sure that they could be the soldiers that they were. And a lot of the things that they did were the ideas of Black women. So we have to make sure that Black women are living the life that they want to live, that they feel empowered and confident enough to run for office, to take those political trainings, to apply for that job, to do whatever they want to do. And it's time that we make sure that we're doing that, be it from being a mentor, being a big sister, making sure we're getting some mentees, what have you. Let's just make sure that there are more of us that look like us who are at the centerfold.
Bree, I think that was so powerful what you said. I think we are so programmed, and I'll speak for self. We are so programmed to just do the work. The work needs to get done. We just do the work, right? We press past trauma. We're used to trauma happens. We go straight back to work. We win an election. We don't take a day off. We go straight back to work. But that's not telling you anything new, as you were the first Black woman and only Black woman to hold a leadership position with Jamie Harrison's campaign in South Carolina. And for us who are South Carolinians, that was huge, because, a lot of people may have not have been voting for him, but they was definitely voting for Bree, because that's who they saw. So I think that is huge. I think you touched on a key point, with getting rest and living the life that we want to live. When we start talking about writing the campaigns and writing the policies to make sure we're addressing Black women needs. So super, super powerful. We're definitely going to come back to that, Bree. So just put a pin in that. I like that, especially the consultant piece, form of life. So All right. So as we move on to our next topic, so when we think about balancing motherhood and being a wife and wearing so many different hats, Bianca, I saw it firsthand. Not only with Bree, who has a son, but I also saw it with you, who has a young daughter, navigating through COVID. So Bianca, working a various campaigns, just coming off a crucial one that I know you can speak to with this. What does that look like when we're talking about tackling paid family and medical leave? What could it look like in 2024? And why should it be on the ballot and impact families of color?
Sure. Well, the first part of that is understanding that there is like an assumed responsibility that women have to caretake for children. We birth them, like we labor, we birth them, and then we're assigned the responsibility of rearing them on top of jobs that we may perform outside of the home. And so there's the first part of that, which does deserve a great deal of attention, which is what happens when we become pregnant and we, are bringing children into this world, and how we're cared for in that process, knowing that these children are going to be impacted by all of the things that their mother experiences during that pregnancy. And from personal experience and multiple times over, I have had difficult pregnancies. With the birth of my first child, and I'm just going to dig into my little bag because maybe this story might inspire someone a little bit and how they pursue this journey. But I labored for 4 days, and 4 days is a long time for anyone to labor. I was a stroke risk, and I had been sent to the hospital for an emergency delivery. And my husband still had to work. And so while I am in the hospital for these 4 days laboring, he is trying to be at home working, and then also coming to the hospital. Mind you, this is in a time before, virtual technology was used all that much. And even in the case of his job, they do not allow him to just work from anywhere, even now. He has to be at a station. And what that meant for me as the hours ticked by is that every 12 hours, I saw a different doctor, a different nurse, and they all were giving me their own interpretation of what it was I needed, but no one was caring to make sure that I was okay, that I had what I needed. And it resulted in a situation where my daughter wound up being in the NICU for a few weeks. And not only that, but like my health was in such jeopardy that even after the point where the stroke risk was supposed to have been passed, it continued on and it lingered for an extended amount of time. And in this period, I'm also worried about going back to work. I have to go back to work. My husband could barely get off work to advocate for me in the hospital room where I needed him to be. When women birth children, it is not just them who are impacted. Like they need a community of people to be there with them, to advocate for them. And had we had policies that enabled my husband to feel that he could be there to support me, and that having a baby was not just the job for a woman to do, I might have had the support that I needed, and I might not have suffered as much as I did. Plainly, I feel the experience was very cruel. It was cruel because there was a period of 2 days where they only gave me ice chips and water. And so for 2 days, just ice chips and water. And I think about this, and it made me not want to have more children. Even though I want to have more children, my fear is that the way that our system treats women, my ability to get through that process and know that I will survive, I don't have that sort of confidence because I almost died in childbirth that time. So when I should I become pregnant, I know that for me, that pregnancy could mean the end of my life. And that is a very heavy thing to know. And if you read the conditions of what it means to be pregnant, like the side effects, death is one of them. And so while they're out here taking away people's ability to make decisions over their reproductive life, they are actually putting the lives of women in jeopardy as well. And with my daughter, who I committed to do everything for, because I do not want her to have that experience when she becomes a mom, I dedicated myself to doing the work of making this country what it needs to be to support her in her boldness and her greatness. I took her to my very first Democratic Party meeting in a carrier. And through, my showing up and my boldness to do some of those things in these environments that can be a little old, right? I assumed leadership positions, and then more women started to come with their children. They saw me sitting as chair of my party with my daughter on my lap. And so they were bringing their kids, and they were having play dates. And we built some great community, because without having people with nuanced lives at the table that reflect the fullness of what our country says we should even have, we suffer fates like we're experiencing now, where they're rolling back all of these protections and freedoms that have been ours, not long, but they have been ours. And so I'm gonna sort of wrap this up a little bit by just saying that we deserve so much more. And if we could get to a place to free this country of the sort of plantation mentality where somebody's got to suffer in order for, for us to get ahead, if we could free ourselves of that, we might actually truly deliver on what it means to be able to have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
You said a lot, sis. I'm with you. I'm with you on the right to have life and liberties. Now, I don't want to be with you in a 4-day labor, but that is definitely something that we don't think about. You see the rise of doulas and all of these things that Black women feel like we need now, right? Because I don't know that every Black woman can trust her healthcare system. So when we think about maternal health, that's one of the things that 1,000 Women Strong will take on for this next issue, for their next campaign. I think we have to think about Black women when we think about maternal health, because statistically it is said more Black women die during childbirth than women of, any other race. We'll leave it at any other race. I'm only advocating for Black women. And so that's huge. That is huge. So Nervahna, welcome. The people knew you had a little bit of technical difficulty.
Technology stuff going on.
But it's okay. It's okay. You're among friends. So let us allow you the space and time to intro yourself and tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll go right into your question.
Sure. So my name's Nervahna Crew. I'm originally from Wilmington, Delaware, but I've been in Raleigh, North Carolina for 19 years now. I have a 17-year-old son who is a junior in high school and an athlete, ROTC kid, you name it. He has me running every which way, every other day. I'm a former Wake County Soil and Water Conservation District Supervisor. In 2018, I was elected to that space, having been the only Black woman ever elected in Wake County to Soil and Water. In 2021, I actually left office early after realizing that as much as I enjoy serving, it was taking up more space in my life than I needed. I needed to be spending time with my child and serving him versus serving a community in a county to which didn't even know I was elected. And being in spaces and having to advocate for myself after serving, Wake County Democratic Party and that being on their board for 3 years and countless other people on their campaigns, and people still forgetting that I too held a title. So in 2021, I made a decision to finally walk away from that space. And now I am a Deputy State Director for America Votes here in North Carolina. And yeah, I'm excited to be in that particular space. It still gives me the flexibility and opportunity to be in spaces like a Joe Biden president coming to Durham, North Carolina, and getting the call to say, please invite 50 people. We'd love to have you guys there. So still get to be in different places and different avenues, but no longer have to have the elected title to do so.
Get the people together in a nice way.
I do
love
what I
it.
can.
I love it. Wake County's lost, America's gain.
That's
So,
right.
We'll keep it there. So, Nervahna, switching gears a little bit, because I'm on all y'all social media. So I see normally every other weekend you're out with your church or with your community, being in community, fixing food boxes to those in need. We know food deserts are a thing. In South Carolina, I live in one, okay? In DC, not so much. I don't know what I live in up here, but in South Carolina, I'm definitely in a food desert. So can we talk, let's discuss food insecurities, and if we don't get this under control now, what that could look like in 2024 for people who look like us. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. So it seems like it's every other weekend, but it's every second Saturday of the month. And we actually had to move it up to this coming Saturday since Easter is second Saturday of the month. And we want to make sure that families have some type of protein and vegetable for Easter Sunday. So as a point of personal privilege, it means a lot to me to go and do what I do when it comes to feeding our community, because in 2011, I was laid off from a corporate job that I had been in for 6 years, and things were looking really good early on, but then after a while, it wasn't looking so great. And I had a young child that I had to feed, and I found myself at the Catholic Charities Parish or different churches in the area getting food boxes. So when the pandemic hit, I found that I had a whole lot more time on my Saturdays, and that when my church said they were not going to stop and they were actually taking on feeding more than just our community, we were feeding different schools because schools were out, and we understood that a lot of our students, the only meals that they get a day are at school. They don't get them at home. So we were bagging up lunches and dinners to go into different communities. So we were literally feeding roughly 5,000 people per week, and then every second Saturday of the month feeding anywhere from 200 to 350 families. So the Food Bank of North Carolina delivers anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 pounds of food every second Saturday of each month without miss. And it's amazing the relationships that you develop with the people that are coming to get the boxes. Like, some are prideful, but most are just very transparent and are very clear that, they get disability checks. The money runs out really early. They don't know what they're going to be able to do for the rest of the month. And they're so thankful and grateful that when they come to see us, we're not asking a whole bunch of questions. We simply say, how many families are you feeding? It could be 1, it could be 10. We're not there to judge. We're there to stand in the gap and provide what we can. And I'm also a football mom. So on every Friday during football season, I make sure that my boys get a hearty meal, because I recognize that some of them will go home that night and they will not have a meal after having that dinner before the football game. So it's imperative that we take a closer look at the food insecurities and understand that it may not be you today, but it could potentially be. And I think that sometimes we do overlook and forget how the opportunities that are presented to us, some days they could be gone. I would have never thought, after working for a place for 6 years, that I would have found myself trying to get food stamps, but because I got unemployment, I made too much money to even receive that type of help. I was thankful. I was grateful that there was a place for me to go and pick up something just as simple as some canned goods to make sure that my child had food to eat. I do know that here in Wake County, we have multiple schools in our Southeast Raleigh region, which is pretty much where all the Black students go to school, where they have food pantries. And kids on Fridays, before they go home for the weekend, they go to the food pantry and they go and get whatever it is that they want, because they need to make sure that they have food to eat over the course of the weekend before they get back to school on Monday. We just start spring break on tomorrow. So today we made sure that, and I'm a part of PT, I'm part of all the stuff, made sure that there was extra stuff that was available to the kids at the school in the food pantry, because they'll be out of school for a week and one day, and need to make sure that those children have all that they need while they're gone. And then in the summertime, we also double back and feed them in the summertime as well. So food insecurities right now in our county are a big thing, especially during the pandemic. A lot of our county commissioners and city council members, they actually took time out of their days to make sure that they were going to different areas to find out who was in need the most, to support them, find funding and grants to get more food donations to provide to our communities. But if we're not cognizant of it now, and if we don't stand in the gap today, 2024, even the rest of this year, we're looking at people that will really physically be struggling because they're malnutrition and they're not getting what they need. And it's a major issue, and it's a crisis, not just here in North Carolina, but across our country.
Wow, that, which is so true and so good. So I heard so many things if I had to bring it back in. I heard about the largest voting bloc, Black women. I heard about making sure that we save space for our mental health, that we save space for the things that we want. I heard making sure that we hire, Black women on every level of campaign, as well as adding them as consultants on campaigns. Bree, I would have missed the finance piece. But let me tell you what, you are right. Like, I want to make sure sisters also looking at my funding, right? So, I'm not just in it for 1,000 Women Strong, because I've been able to go behind the scenes with this organization and see. But one of the things that I pride Shakia Cherry Donaldson on as the executive director, everybody's African American. So some people say that, but I think a lot of the time when the great uprising was coming, we was like, that's nice, but what do your board look like? All her people Black. So let's start there. So that was huge. And that was very unapologetic. So even when thinking about the 7-state strategy, I want to mention this because these are states that you will see 1,000 Women Strong in, and they've been consistent for the last 2 years of their existence. So Texas, you'll see them, right? Texas has its own issues for a whole nother day. That's a whole nother call we could be on. We won't start it today. But Texas, you'll see 1,000 Women Strong in the northeastern part of Texas. Also Georgia, birthed out of Georgia. Shakia, mentions every time she talks about how, she started with Leader Abrams on one of her campaigns and kind of grew from there and, launched 1,000 Women Strong. So Southwest Georgia, we're going to always stay in Southwest Georgia. You'll see us there. Pennsylvania is another state where, when you think about Western PA, think about 1,000 Women Strong. Central Virginia, a lot of people is like, y'all in Virginia. Listen, it's not just the people running out of the backwoods. There are 1,000 Women Strong ran in. They ran in the last campaign. They helped to get people in seats that, you may never think of, but just know the women who are in seats now was at the helm and at the help of 1,000 Women Strong when they first began organizing students to start coming in. Our fellowship program is a whole nother conversation that we'll save for another day, but just know it's there. Michigan. Ooh, y'all know Michigan is starting not to look like us, but have, declare more African Americans than any other place. So you'll see us in Michigan as well as rural North Carolina. We touched North Carolina last cycle. Thank you to Nervahna. She was part of that program and launched there. And we're going back. We know some of the demographics is changing, redlining is happening all over. But, regardless of the fact you'll see us there, you'll also see us in South Carolina. Why? Because South Carolina will have races that we have to watch. And if we're not careful, people like Matt Master will be the only voice for South Carolina. And we know, and Bree can tell you, like, that ain't what you want. South Carolina will lead the primary this go round because of the work that was done on the back of Blacks from, the last presidential. I always have to give Kendall Corley a shout out, as he was the only Black man who led the Biden campaign for South Carolina. and now they'll lead the primary. And also Florida. Y'all will see us in Florida. We don't know for how long. You know, one of their residents was indicted today, but we'll see. We'll see what happens in Florida. We'll go back down there with our people. So again, just to kind of recap, there are going to be 4 issues that are important that we want to make sure folks are paying attention to on the ballot for 2024. Whether we get behind them, we don't endorse candidates, but whether we get behind them and continue to work.
I did see, Bryanta, I saw the climate change on the survey, and just a few weeks ago, I went to DC for Oxfam Sister on the Planet, where it was literally a conference regarding climate change. And on our last day, everybody were in different breakout groups to go to lobby for climate related issues at different offices. I actually wound up at your office. You weren't there that day, but I wound up at your office to have conversation with many women. And ironically enough, one of the main women that was in my focus group was an older white woman. She served in Congress many, many moons ago, but she was a Republican, but she understood climate and she understood the value of being in front of people to make this thing work and its impact. And I never thought I could like relate to a white woman Republican, but I got along very well with this particular lady. And it was kind of like eye-opening. So if y'all ever get a chance to look into Oxfam and what they're doing when it comes to climate, they're really trying to make some things happen. And it's pretty much a woman-led organization.
Awesome. Make sure you share it with us either in the chat or we can send it out after this Zoom to all of our attendees, because believe it or not, a lot of people are talking about what will happen in 10 years with our planet, with the climate. So we know environmental justice is one thing that's on the ballot for us. Paid family leave, paid family and medical leave. What does that look like? You know, Bree, if your son, you know, wanted to take off and have paternity leave, I know he's not old enough yet and you would like choke him, but you know, could he have the time? You know, should we advocate that jobs have to provide it from day one? What should that look like? Maternal health will be on the ballot for us, and we'll be watching to see who's taking that on, as well as food insecurity. Those are the 4 things that 1,000 Women Strong really wants to make sure that we're focused on, that we're looking at, that we're watching. Those impact us the greatest, survey says, right? So anything to add here, ladies? I want to yield in case anyone wants to kind of add in anything there. If you check the comment box, there is a survey being dropped in there now. If you could take action with us, lock arms, complete the survey. We want to hear from you. This is how we know we're going in the right direction. So anybody want to touch on any of those 4 things?
Well, you bring up a very valid point about environmental and the climate, because right now I think people are starting to pay attention to environmental justice. I remember my mother telling me that when she was growing up, because I'm from Lawrence, South Carolina, there's in the neighborhood that she grew up in, there was something going on with the water, and they could never figure out what was going on with the water. So come to find out, most of the men who grew up in that neighborhood have all got cancer. And most of them have all succumbed to that cancer. Like 2 of my uncles have cancer now. So it's like, it's one of those things where they have been dumping stuff in our neighborhoods for years, and you don't see the after effects of it until later on. I've watched the people who watched me grow up, I've watched them not be able to take care of themselves because of environmental justice. And I think that's something that we need to learn to start paying attention to. One thing that it's 2023, and there's no reason why we shouldn't have clean drinking water. If you don't want to do anything else for your constituents, give them clean drinking water, because they have to be able, because water affects a lot of things. It affects your hair, it affects your child's brain development, it affects your skin, it affects the food that you cook, it affects your nourishment, period. So, I mean, if we don't want to do anything else, if you want to just be that whack of a politician, just give them clean drinking water. And so it's those are things that we also just need to make sure we're paying attention to. It's our environment.
And to touch back on that, but when we're talking about these politicians and trying to hold them accountable, we have to also hold the voters accountable, because if you don't go out and vote, you allow these people to continue to stay in office and continue to put these policies in place that are to your detriment. So when we are out here advocating for the people that we know will go out and do what needs to be done for, environmental justice and for, women's health, and we got to make sure these voters are educated. And I think that's the biggest problem that we've had over the last couple of years is people not willing to pay attention to the messaging that we're trying to send with regards to their vote and the impact that it has, whether you vote or don't vote.
And I'll just add, Black women step out in the forefront so often on so many of these issues. And we carry the banners because we are largely, supporting families, breadwinning, birthing, like the whole gambit, right? And with that, I think it is vital that we not run away from the idea of taking leadership in these areas. I lived in a community, a mile and a half, 2 miles away from like a mixed use development that was built on top of a landfill. It wasn't just that mixed use development that was impacted by community being built up around that landfill, right? It was all of us. When it rained, the smells would come in the house, no matter if you had the windows closed or not. And the people that lived in that community died at very, very high rates of cancer, and women who got pregnant had miscarriages and birth defects in about the 60-70% range. When we move as if some communities don't matter and others do, we wind up destroying everyone and everything in the process. The damage that was done to that community, my community, it spilled over into the waterways that traveled through all of those communities. It was also a food desert. It's like we had to travel so far to find food that sometimes for lunch, I might only have what used to be a 25-cent bag of chips. I might only have a 25-cent bag of chips in my bag. And so, Nervahna, I really appreciate the work that you're doing specifically on food insecurity, because it matters a great deal. And when our policymakers are looking at some of these issues, they're looking at the money coming in, but not necessarily making sure it gets to all the right places. So we always need leadership from our communities, and we can't wait for someone else to bring it to us. We have to seek it, and we've got to be it. And coming out of this last cycle, the 22 cycle, being here in Georgia, there was one thing that struck me about being a Black woman in leadership. And it's that our labor is wanted, but our leadership is not. And we gotta fight. We gotta fight to claim our space, because at the end of the day, we are holding the bag for a lot of people, whether they want us to lead or not, whether they like it or not, and we got to do it anyway. So do the surveys, show up where you can, make your voices heard on all of these things, because there is not one of these issues that is not 3, 4, 5 times worse for Black women. And it's why we do the work.
Bree, would you get ready to say something? Oh, okay.
No, that was just very profound what you said, girl. I put it in my notes. I'm gonna use that Saturday. I gotta give a speech Saturday for a Black woman running for something. I'm gonna put that right in my notes, and I'm gonna say it to the people of Florence, South Carolina.
Listen, it's gonna be my Facebook post tomorrow before Bree gives her speech. So they'll think that Bree got it from me and I got it from Bianca. They want our labor, but they don't want our leadership. That is,
I'm just waiting for you to drop the t-shirt line, because
so 1,000 Women Strong reserves the right to now own that hashtag for our t-shirt line. Just FYI. But no, that is so true. Couldn't be more true, more powerful, and definitely so. And Bree, one thing that I was getting ready to say, as Nervahna talked about, the responsibility to voters, voters having to come out. Bree, I heard you just say, I'm going on behalf of someone else. So we just talked about how Black women carry the water up the hill on our backs. Whether it's in your full-time capacity, whether it's in your committee woman capacity for the DNC, or whether it's in your capacity as a South Carolina voter. What I heard you say was you still haven't gotten the rest yet because you're still doing the work, but you are going to make sure Black women are in place. So can we ask who you're going on behalf of, or are you just going on behalf of a Black woman?
Listen, I have no shame. I'm going on behalf of Crystal Spain. Crystal Spain is a Black woman who have basically been involved in Democratic Party politics as a volunteer. And I stress the word volunteer because she started as a volunteer a good 2, 3, 4, 5 years before she even got a check. She would go to the party, answer the phone, whatever they wanted her to do. And because of her faithfulness to that, God promoted her to things bigger and better. So she has been able to be operations director, deputy executive director, senior advisor to the party. She worked for Bernie Sanders. She was Cory Booker's state director. Then she went off and did national stuff. And now she is the senior advisor of Black engagement, the DCCC. She's run campaigns. She's run small campaigns. And you're going to sit here and tell me she don't have the experience to be chair of the party? Oh, I'm going to show you why she does have the experience. And I'm going to remind you why. So yes, I'm driving an hour and some change to Florence on Saturday to support not only my friend, but she's also my sister. And if you know anything about Black Greek letter organizations, we take the shield seriously. And she's also my sorority sister.
So y'all know Bree is involved in everything, but what
that excites me, because you saw what just happened here in North Carolina. North Carolina had a Black woman that was a chair.
And that made me so mad.
And I'm not going to say that the chair was the absolute best in the world, because there's always room for improvement. But now we got a 25-year-old white woman that's carrying all of this party leadership on her shoulder. But when I was a 25-year-old Black girl actively involved in Democratic politics, because I've been doing this since I was 12 and I'm 43, the only thing I could do was be a proxy to your state executive committee. I was never allowed an opportunity to do anything other than be a volunteer. And hell, Bajia can even tell you, all the way up until 2020, I was still listed as a super volunteer and had to advise them that you will not get my labor nor my service to help the president that was my senator that I worked for and helped to get elected when I lived in Delaware. You won't get my service for free. So I understand what you're trying to do, Bree. It's important. It's necessary. And I'm glad that you're willing to take that on your back and do that and advocate for her. Because here in North Carolina, we say that we rock with people and we support Black women and we got them. And then the moment that they say or do something we don't like, instead of us saying, let me pick you up, let me encourage you, let me figure out how best we can cultivate this relationship and work together and branch and build this thing out. That's not what we did. We put 25-year-old white girls in place instead.
Right. Girl, when I found out about that race, I was heated, honey. We had a DNC meeting that week before. I told our people in North Carolina, I said, y'all better not disappoint me.
And they didn't. And your DNC members, 3 of them came out heavily in supporting and endorsing 3 of 3. So that tells you who did not.
Yeah. Yep. And I've been texting, ran
into the oldest one of the whole entire crew weeks later in DC while she was there for something for humanities and said, isn't this great? Man, please get on my face.
All I can say is the fights that we have been fighting for 400 years are still here and well. Okay. So when I talk about the plantation politics and things like that, everybody is fighting to get to the master's bedroom. Okay. And you got your overseers out there trying to push you down to make sure that you don't get up there, and they can't get in there neither. And this is all the reason why we have to keep doing the work and supporting each other, because I'm gonna tell you, I was so hurt out of the last cycle. And that is part of how you get worn down. You get worn down by these narratives, and y'all all heard it about too many Black women being in charge of stuff and folks not wanting to listen to Black women. But we doing the work. Black women have not just been anointed to lead, they have been leading because they have not had a choice, okay? And so what I appreciate about 1,000 Women Strong is that we're not waiting for anyone to tell us what's important to us and how we're gonna go get it done. 1,000 Women Strong created a platform for us to be vocal and to put our issues first and to work for it. And you know, excuse my French, hell, lead me, follow me, or get out my way. Like, that's where I'm at. Like, I'm all about that action.
And I don't know if we can sell a shirt that say, hell, lead me, follow me, or get out of the way, but I will double check. And it will be on our website. So let me tell you, the website is womenstrong.com. Whatever shirt you see on there, we have the right to sell. So it may be some of these sayings tonight that we put on shirts that you all can buy. But trust me, you know, we're better than the Red Cross. Every dollar you spend on merchandise, we turn around and we put it back in the community. We'll have 2 cohorts of fellows. Those will be your high school. So we are one of few and the only Black woman-led organization that hires fellows. We do pay them. They're not volunteers. They get paid. That will hire high school fellows, as long as they're senior, as well as college fellows. And we'll run 2 cohorts and they'll begin like next month. And then the second cohort will come in, they'll, you know, get their money around Christmas time, you know, making sure that we are training up the next generation, because the one thing that we don't do sometimes is shape the next leader and then pass the baton. And we have to get better at that. So we know as an organization, Shakia has, you know, since started making sure that we are thinking about who will replace us, because we all got to go and get out of the way one day, right? So making sure that next leader is prepared when they get here. So I know we have 10 minutes left. I want to reemphasize again to please, please, please take the survey. Let us hear your voice. Lock arms with us. Again, if you go to the website, 1kwomenstrong.com, you can see everything from, you know, the work that's being done, the 7-stage strategy, the team, news, events, all of those good things. They have a Facebook page. They have a social media page, but you also get to see the founder, Shakia Cherry Donaldson, who has done the work, who stayed in community, who's been out there, you know, sis knows how to raise money, sis knows how to lead, you know, and she has learned and put a team in place to go out and get the work done as well on the consultant level, Bree. So I know you can appreciate that. Nobody works for her, everybody works with her as consultants. So, you know, for many, that is huge. Want to make sure we remember the 4 issue campaigns that will be at the forefront of leading this organization into at the end of 2023 into 2024, which will be environmental justice, making sure that we are talking about paid family and medical leave, as well as maternal health and food insecurities. So again, told you the 7 states, asked you to fill out the survey. I told you at the beginning, this is kicking off a series. So thankful for all 3 of y'all coming tonight to hang out. Like, you know, it's like having your best girlfriends at your house with no food because y'all are just here virtually. But, you know, just able to really talk about life. I'm thankful to know you all personally and to know what you said is really who you are. I've been in situations where Bree, I'm like, Bree, can you come down to Southwest Georgia and help us do some work real quick, like right in the middle of her working like 2 campaigns. And, you know, she did it. You know, not for free, which I don't blame. I don't ask people to work for free. I don't work for free. But she came down and she did the work, and like, Bree, we don't have access to these national folk. And, you know, when somebody is willing to put their name on the line for you, you don't let them down. So Bree, thank you for that. Bianca, who, served in a leadership role for the Biden campaign for North Carolina as chief of staff in North Carolina, was huge because we needed the divine nine, connection that we didn't have. Also, we needed the institutional knowledge of a Black woman to connect community. So Bianca, forever thankful for you bringing that experience. And then Nervahna, who not only helped us navigate in North Carolina on the political side for the Biden campaign, but brought in her years of experience and connection. So, just three powerhouse of women. I want to yield the last 7 minutes. If you all would go around, do 2-minute recap of kind of your takeaway for tonight so we can give the people their Thursday night back. Bree, we'll start with you.
So last time I did a speech for Crystal, I brought in the Bible and I talked about, because Moses was supposed to lead the people to the promised land, but he wasn't faithful to God, so God didn't let him make it. But instead, he let Caleb and Joshua make it because of their faithfulness, because they went and they looked and they realized that it was a land full of milk and honey. They realized that there are giants and that there are challenges over there. And what we need more Calebs and Joshuas in the form of Black women to go and make sure that we're going to the mountaintop, because South Carolina is a land of milk and honey. Georgia is a land of milk and honey. North Carolina is a land of milk and honey, but if we don't realize it's a land of milk and honey, we won't get to that promised land. So we need to make sure that we have the people that will help us get there. And that's a Black woman.
Bianca.
Man, I'm like, okay, Bree, listen, I don't even look, how do I look? We didn't went to the good book over here, okay?
You can get the shirt later. Book. Don't worry about it, Bianca. You can get the shirt later on the website.
The one thing I will say to round things up is so often I have struggled to claim my own voice, to trust in my experience. And what I have had to come to terms with is that my experience and my voice are my most powerful things that I'm bringing to the table. I walk in rooms and I know folks, and I can talk to them about experiences because I've experienced a lot of things. And we've got so many folks that are making decisions that don't have any of these experiences, right? They want to tell us what's good for us and how we're going to do it, and that we're not qualified to solve or to create policy that addresses these issues. And they're wrong. Right now, it is so very critical that we dig deep and we say all the most loving things to ourselves, because the world is going to rip us apart if we let it. And we have to maintain our focus and our center on just doing the work and committing to it every day. And some days you might need a rest, and that's okay. But on that day when you could just beast it and, pat yourself on the back, but it is a journey. It is not a singular destination. So we've got a long way to go. And we've got a lot of work to do. That's it.
Awesome. Nervahna.
I just want to say thank you, Bryanta and 1000 Women Strong, for the invitation to be here tonight for this virtual event and sharing this platform with two amazing women that are on the move and that are doing the work and doing the heavy lifting. It's like one of those things where this doesn't get to happen often. So I'm excited and glad that Bryanta had us all come together on tonight. I am who I am. I do the work that I can. I learned to take my rest. I found my voice a long time ago. People hate it. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, the work that I do isn't just for me. It's for the generation that comes behind me. And I want to make sure that we leave something for them. Like Bryanta said a little while ago, at some point we got to get out of this space and we got to come out of this work. And I want to make sure that we are doing the absolute best we can for the ones that do come behind us. So if I'm just one of the handful of people that care about the next generation and making sure that they're set up, I'll take that on my chest gladly and proudly. So I am who I am. That's it.
Well, I'm super excited that all of you could join us again. I want to thank 1,000 Women Strong Executive Director Shakia Cherry Donaldson, who allowed myself, Bajia Edie, to serve as the moderator tonight. Thank her entire team who put together talking points. We didn't go by them, but they had them. Thank her entire team who created the survey that will hear the voices of all of those out there. So again, go take the survey, go to the website, www.1kwomenstrong.com. Connect with us. Let us hear your voice. Let us know we're going in the right direction. Thank 1,000 Women Strong who have documented results. It's one thing to run an organization and raise money and pay people. It's another thing to have the results. So thank you all. Thank Black women all over this world for doing the work, for getting Biden elected, for, getting us back to being as normal as possible. I want to say it's the Black woman probably in New York that got Trump indicted today. Thank her just for being Black. That's important. When you hire the right people, you get the results you need. So again, as we sign off and say good night, thank each of you.